Hi folks, it's really good to meet with you again today. I'm in my front room as I normally am, and even though it's through the screen of a computer, I still feel I'm with you. It's better than nothing. I hope you're okay. I just want to tell you that we miss you and we want to send all our love to you and best wishes out to everyone. It's made me reflect over the last few months. I've been reflecting on a lot of things. It's been a difficult time for many, and it still is. But I'm getting this sense that there are a few glimpses of some bright rays of sunshine on the horizon. There's visions of increased hope, if you like, and the feeling of something new coming soon, just around the corner. That's what I think, anyway. I'm holding on to those types of thoughts. And in terms of moving forward, we'd like to grasp that at Grapevine. So we're going to start some services soon, hopefully next week. And one or two other activities are kicking off where people can join in. There should be good opportunities to start meeting together again, saying hello, even if it's across the room, for those who can anyway. And I know it's not easy for everybody to get involved, but it feels good. It feels things are moving forward. I was really challenged last week and inspired and uplifted as well by the talk Elaine had, and the word she used about the need to resource the energy that we have to fight. The word she had was fight, and start to claim back what God has given us in the first place. And those words for me were really positive. I do feel God has given us new hope and a new vibe, revealing that things will slowly start to return. But also I'm aware in it all that I need to play my part. I need to get involved. I need to start doing. Why? Because I think that's when I'm at my best. And just putting everything together over the last month or two, having chats with people and discussing what's happening in the world and its effects on them, it's helped me think about things widely and reflect on circumstances. But something which has come up a lot is loneliness. I just wondered if you can relate to this either now or in the past. It's quite a difficult path, the lonely path. I wondered, have you ever felt unwanted or rejected, or even when surrounded by other people, whether it's your friends, your family, or your church, you just feel out there? Have you had that feeling of being left out, or a feeling of a sense of worthlessness? You might have even thought something like this: well, since nobody seems to want to be with me, I guess I'm not worth being with. Those type of thoughts can be due to us feeling lonely. You might be feeling lonely right now. Loneliness is one of the greatest problems in our society today. It's something which is really painful, it's draining, it's unpleasant, and it can sweep over us and hang on in spite of all our best efforts to cast it off. And some writers even say that we live in a loneliness-producing society. Isn't that sad? A loneliness-producing society where all the rapid change and modern technology discourages from any real intimacy. Even in churches and in homes, people can avoid each other, and then only to throw themselves blindly into sharing with strangers. Drinkers do it at the bar. People sit on aeroplane seats, will reveal their deepest secrets to the person sitting next to them, because the space for intimacy just isn't available at the moment. It's not often available. And that's part of our challenge, to fight back and start creating these times where we can be together and share, and even if it's speaking across a short distance. It's the hope of finding the closeness and helping us all to escape that inner sense of isolation. And I think it's more common than we think for all of us. So I really believe that we need to try and help and support one another in this, because loneliness can truly drag us down. I was recently watching an episode of a program that Elaine watches. It's about an American guy called Young Sheldon. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a series about a young lad he's very gifted. He's a genius, if you like. He doesn't have the greatest social skills, and he sees the world in a different perspective from many others around him. He's interested in science, which is not really part of the mainstream for everybody else. So he's a bit serious, but he's really passionate and he's enthusiastic and he's really resilient. And in this particular episode, he organises an event where he invites all the school to join him for the announcement of the latest Nobel Prizes for Science, which is to be broadcast live from Sweden. He organises his garage with seating, he sets food out, he gets refreshments organised, he produces and circulates his advertising, and then he waits for everyone to show up. But as I watched, like every other person watching, I wondered who would actually turn up, as it was going to take place at 5 o'clock in the morning. And as you can guess, when the time came, nobody arrived. And there he was, all alone, sitting there listening to the 5 a.m. broadcast, feeling very sad, dejected, isolated and lonely. It made me think about how difficult it is for some people. It made me consider the impact of loneliness. One guy puts it like this: the pain of loneliness for some can be so sharp that you're willing to try anything for half an hour of companionship. The scourge of loneliness is something that hits all of us at some time in our life. So I don't want to deject people. At the end of this episode, it was left with this lad with his head in his hands. But then, as the camera pulls back and the film cuts out to other scenes, there's a series of these young, gifted kids all sitting alone beside their radios right across the country, waiting for announcements to come. They didn't know about each other. They didn't know all the bonds of shared interest they had. And in reality, they weren't alone. They just didn't realize who was out there that's in the same situation as them. And it's very comforting to watch and to think about the fact that they might one day get together and know each other and know they weren't alone. And I think we need to tell each other that we're not alone. We have to speak it out. We have to know that God is with us, but we also need to know from each other that we're there to support each other and talk to each other. God doesn't want us to be alone. When we look through the covers of the Bible, although loneliness is rarely discussed directly, it's frequently seen in the lives of many giants and characters of faith. If you just look into it, you can see it. Jacob, Moses, Nehemiah, Elijah, Jeremiah, David, all of them. David in Psalm 25:16 says this: I am desolate and afflicted. I've been left and deserted. We see it in Jesus. He's the man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. He was rejected by his own people. And as we see him near the end of his life's ministry in the Garden of Gethsemane, all his disciples left him. They fell asleep. And we see it on the cross when he asks God why he's left him. But God doesn't want us to be alone or feel like we're alone. Now, there are many factors that make us feel lonely. And if you are, you don't need to be retold why. You know why. But what you and I need when we have a lonely heart is to be ministered by the Spirit of God and other people as well. So if you're in this place of loneliness, how can you cope? How can we help ourselves? How can we help others cope with loneliness? How do we do it? Well, the first thing might seem a bit weird, but it's to accept it. Often we just can't change the circumstances that have caused our loneliness. It's happened and we can't do anything about it. And maybe the first step to healing in our loneliness is to accept what can't be changed. In a weird way, it's sort of embracing loneliness. So easy to say. I know, so difficult to apply. It might also mean grieving what you've lost before you can accept it. In Philippians 4:10-13, it says this: I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity, excuse me, to show it. I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I've learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. Now that doesn't mean we go jumping around for joy. What it does mean is instead of trying to struggle and fight with it, is to embrace it, knowing that God is always there for you and for me. And there are more people around us that care than we might realize. So accepting it is that real difficult challenge at the start. The second thing is change. Is there any way you or I can effectively and actively change our circumstance and situation? You know, when you're feeling lonely, it can be really hard to muster the energy to do anything. We may want people to know about it and how bad we feel, but sitting by the phone waiting all the time will not help us get out of this place. So I think in whatever style you can, whatever way you can, try to think about the ways in which you could serve and connect with other people first. There may be some real hurdles to get over and some learning to take place, but it's really worth it. Because we've seen this happen. People learning to socialize again and talk again using computer platforms like Zoom and Facebook. It's not easy though to get to that position, or picking up the phone more often than we used to say hello and have a chat. Sending a card, dropping by unannounced, trying to start a new routine. I think all of those help. And I would like to challenge us all. We could all sit back and say, I'm feeling lonely, I'm not in a good place, and I've been waiting for you to get in touch, and you didn't. But we have to take any pride we have in us out of the equation for it to work. So if you're feeling lonely and down, it's okay to pick up the phone and ask somebody to come over for a coffee and a chat. Of course it is. Let's not be afraid to do that for one another. Let's throw the stiff upper lip stuff out the window. It's nonsense. Let's get real with each other. It's been hard for many, I know, but all of us can do something to keep in touch. You know, if all of us just took it upon ourselves to be responsible for keeping in touch with two people, to talk to them, to bless them, encourage them as much as we could when we can, then we'd all be covered. It would escalate and move around. And I reflected also on this week on an article which said this: believe it or not, pastors are often introverts and they can be lonely as well. Don't assume that everybody running around surrounded by people isn't lonely. They can be as lonely as anybody else. You might be shy too. And stepping into a new life, a new circumstance takes courage. Though rewarding, all new activities require resolve, effort, and perseverance. But living Christ's abundant life is the moment. In the moment is key. It says this in Proverbs 18:24. Friends come and friends go, but a true friend sticks by you like family. Making the first move to encourage, bless, and support is a great way to help the walls of loneliness come down. So if there are things we can alter in our daily walk, they should be the ones which help us defeat this loneliness thing. So accept it. Try to look even for the smallest things that will change our circumstances. And change our circumstances might mean reaching out and asking somebody to talk to you. And the third way is really keep up with meeting your spiritual needs. What do I mean by that? Well, you could surround yourself with all the friends and all the relatives in the world. You could be engaged by the most powerful, famous person in the world, and still you could be the loneliest creature on the face of God's earth. Even H.G. Wells, the famous writer, said this. He said, "I'm 60 and I am lonely, and I've never found peace." What a man of success he was in the literary world. Yet at the end of his life, he said he was the loneliest man who'd never found peace. Jesus has no arms down here, but we do. We can be a helping and healing community which radiates the life, acceptance, and support of Jesus. For we're meant to be his body, and when one part of the body hurts, it all should. There is this real spiritual strength in community together. This is the essence of life, what it really boils down to. It's relationship with God and relationship with each other. That's why over the last few weeks, even as this small church, we've been trying to keep things together by getting the prayer times online, by organising coffee mornings online, by putting out worship songs, by putting out talks, by encouraging chats, by having activities, by sharing testimonies. Yeah, some of them are online, some things are at church as well. This is all about meeting our spiritual needs. And hopefully, when we meet together soon, that will enable that to continue. So I want to thank you all, those who've been phoning, those who've been texting each other. Thank you for caring for one another, doing the shopping, doing the gardening. Thank you for opening up the church and organising the events to get people who normally come to events to get out there and share. Thank you for keeping in touch with all the kids. That's what it's all about. It says in Ecclesiastes, 2 are better off than 1, because together they can work more effectively. If one of them falls down, the other can help him up. But if someone is alone and falls, it's just too bad because there's no one to help him. If it is cold, 2 can sleep together and stay warm. But how can you keep warm by yourself? 2 people can resist an attack that would defeat one person alone. A rope made of 3 cords is hard to break. That's from Ecclesiastes 4. Folks, this relationship we have with Jesus, it's not a solo fight. Isn't it interesting that Jesus surrounded himself with 12 disciples, doing life together, ministry together? That's what it's all about. That's why we need to put so much time and energy into this. That's why the words Elaine spoke about fighting is so important to me. We've got to fight for this. We've got to fight for this as a community, but we've got to fight for this individually as well. If we're feeling low, if we're feeling down, we've got to try something. We've got to talk to somebody. We've got to get somebody to talk to us. And for some of you, if you're lonely right now, that's such a hard step. But don't give up. You might have to be proactive in finding a group to get involved with. Join one of the home groups. You know, get a prayer partner if you've not got one. Muster up the courage and go for it. I believe that when we make these new relationships, that it makes huge differences in our lives. But it takes a real measure of courage to connect with others. But we need to surround ourselves with a group of friends who will help us and support us and help us grow spiritually. And if you aren't lonely yourself, but you know someone who is, think about what you can do to make and change their days. What little thing can you do to speak love into their lives? Maybe even now, if you're listening to this little short talk could give you a sense of the fact that you're surrounded by people who care for you, who value you, and who love you just as you are, and are there ready for you. But people can't second guess, so we need to keep that communication going. Let's really work hard together at breaking this loneliness wall, and do whatever we can to support one another. Look, if you can make it to the services coming up soon, give it a shot. They're going to be different. We can't sing. We're going to be separated. But it's the ball starting to roll. And it would be so good to see people there. I'll put some more details out and about this fairly soon. But I hope to see you. All our love to you. Big blessings to you. Please don't feel alone. God bless you and see you soon.